Great. Thank you, Marty. All right. Good evening. I apologize for the late start. We had some technical difficulties. This is the Missoula City Council, a meeting on October 2nd, 2023 in Chambers. If you would please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, and Marty, I believe we have everyone in attendance. Virtually, we have Mirtha, Becerra, Jennifer Savage, and Heidi West, and I think they are all in the meeting.
Point of order.
Uh-oh, yes?
I don't think we can hear you in the virtual meeting now. You guys can hear us, but we can't hear you.
Okay, well, we should just sit here for a while then.
I can hear you.
Okay, great. All right, I think we're all systems.
And I can hear everybody back here. It's great.
All right, just don't anybody move now. Okay, very good. All right, we have all counselors in attendance tonight. We do not have any minutes to approve, but we'll take public comment on items not on the agenda. So if anyone in Chambers wants to come up and give public comment, please feel free. Just please state your name and spell your last name, and I'll try and set my timer for 3 minutes. Okay.
Allie Harrison, Ward 3, Harrison, Harrison. Good evening. I want to acknowledge that October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, and I'm part of a survivor-led group of women from across the country who are raising awareness and bringing legislative changes to domestic violence laws. Chances are you know someone right now experiencing domestic violence, and that person may even be you. The good news is you don't have to stay there. On behalf of myself and our team, I want you to know that we see you, we hear you, we believe you, and there is help. On Sunday, October 8th, I encourage you to wear purple, link arms with survivors from across the country, and join us for a walk downtown at the courthouse. I can provide you further details after the gathering if you would like. So no more silence. Let's end domestic violence together. Thank you very much.
Great, thank you. Public comment on items not on the agenda? Anyone else?
Kevin Hunt, Ward 1. I just wanted to acknowledge and thank the council for making a better arrangement here for people who have physical challenges. As we discussed earlier, it happens, and for anybody who says nobody listens and ever does anything, well, people listened and did something, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hunt. Anyone else in Chambers wanting to provide public comment on items not on the agenda?
Jeffrey Oswald. I live over on Mount Avenue. I guess it's Ward 6.
If you want to spell it, if you want to spell your last name, thank you.
O-S-W-A-L-D.
Thank you.
I was listening to the Pledge of Allegiance just a minute ago. And liberty and justice for all. Liberty means being able to make your own choices. And there are some people without being convicted of any crimes or anything, they're not being able to make their own choices. I also thought about, I brought it up because I was thinking a lot about the way that the Declaration of Independence starts. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that every man is endowed by his creator with certain inalienable rights. And I believe that, and among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Again, liberty and the pursuit of happiness. I think that there are real challenges when you hit bottom. Even if you have the best intentions of rising up, pull yourself up by your bootstraps and whatnot. But there are some real impediments in the way that this government, city government, is behaving towards people who don't have houses. And one of them is this emergency, so that you can like send everybody to the Johnson Center earlier and get them out of sight. It's called warehousing people. And it's in substance, it's no different than a concentration camp. It's a camp, it's a place where you're concentrating people together that you just that have been decided to be societally undesirable. And while you're certainly not tossing any gas grenades in there and killing people, his body's a little bit of a person's soul dies when they are interned unjustly, and when society goes along with it. I mean, it happened in Nazi Germany, and I don't think the city's particularly like Nazi Germany at this point, but all it takes is good people to not care about one other group, and then it might be another group after that. And I just don't want this town to be known by anybody for the maltreatment of people who are vulnerable to those who have more wealth and power than them. Oh, is that my timer?
Go ahead and finish up.
But anyway, that's what's been kind of running through my head this week, is that there are people that don't have the abilities that probably anybody on this council has, as far as tolerance for situations that are difficult. Some people already tried that. They didn't do very well. Maybe they're not as capable as you are. And some people, they got addicted to an opioid. And some of them, they went to a doctor because they got an injury, and then they ended up addicted to the prescription they had. And then maybe they went the wrong way with that, and instead of trying to get in rehab and, bankrupting themselves trying to pay for rehab, they went and fed their addiction. It's a pretty easy thing to do. I really only taken opioids when they were prescribed by a doctor, but when I had my two wisdom teeth pulled out, I had Vicodin, and within a couple days of taking it, I began to crave it. And so I stopped taking it. I knew what that was. I didn't want to have that. But there's a lot of people that maybe don't have the presence of mind that people who had greater advantages in life had. Maybe they're not as smart, but do they deserve to be treated like cattle and rounded into a pen for mavericks? I mean, my neighbor is like, he makes $100 an hour, he told me one time. He's like a consultant of some sort. He's outraged about the Johnson Center because of just kind of this reason. He says it's a terrible place to put people. Nobody wants to be there. And that's why you're having trouble getting people to just show up voluntarily when the weather's not too cold. Because if you ever tried to sleep in a room with 10 other people, you know that there's going to be 1 or 2 snorers in there. There's going to be people farting and whatever. And imagine being in a room with over 100 other people. And maybe some of them are people you're afraid of, and there's no barriers between you and them. And that's what the Johnson Center really is. Even though it might help some people, it's definitely detrimental to the mental health of most of the people who have to stay there.
So thank you. Sorry, this is a super loud mic. We're quite a bit over, and I know there's other people that did want to provide public comment. Thank you. All righty, thanks. Anyone else in chambers that wants to provide public comment? Come on up and state your name, please, and spell it.
Big K, Montana, Spitzmacher, email address, S. P. Paul, I. Ada, T. Tom, Z. Zebra, M. Mary, A. Adam, C. Charlie, H. Henry, E. Edward, R. Robert. I got a wonderful email response from emailing you people in regards to the putrid swamp of the Poverello. We advocate the hateful. Are those emails available to the public, may I ask? I heard they are. But that's all right. I just ignited my other email that I created in Kalispell. Big K, lowlife, Montana. And I'm proud to be a lowlife that's not being acknowledged of the embrace of the hateful, of the Poverello. Do any of you council members ever reach out to Jill Bonney and the other two individuals that advocate the hateful of the specific individuals of March 17th of 2023 that threatened my life? If they seen me along the river, I would have been bodily injured or dead. I'm sorry, I don't associate with those people. Maybe that's why they don't like me, because I'm not a purebred addict. I don't share cigarettes, and I just disturb people when I don't have alcohol to share for them. Well, spit on me. The management of certain people of the Poverello have, and it seems to be embraced by people that receive the emails of this chamber. And I hear a lot of wonderful, delicious news coming out of New York. Isn't it grateful we don't have the problems that New York has acquired thanks to our wonderful government establishment, we'll call it? You gotta love it when the hemorrhage heart, when the bleeding hearts start to hemorrhage. So in regards to the challenged individuals of the spine community that needs better assistance, that are creating problems for the local communities, let's get the addresses together of the bleeding hearts and move them into their neighborhood. They should embrace them really well, better than the neighborhoods that don't want them. Anybody know what a bleeding heart is? That's what one of my former consultants used to call them, bleeding hearts, the do-gooders of the 70s. So do you have a collective discussion how to rectify or manage this problem? If our agricultural industry would manage the problem as bad as you do, you'd have to cannibalize somebody to survive, because it is managed that bad in this city and other cities of the challenged. And I'm kind of happy to be functionally displaced, because I can go most anywhere I'd like to go. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Spitzmacher. Anyone else?
We talk about these institutions, and as much as we say these things, they don't really seem to get addressed. I walked into the Johnson the other night, right into the dude that sexually harassed me last year at the beginning of the year, that started all of the kerfuffle of protest, all of the chip on my shoulder against what's going on to the people in this town, and the same fella's back there again. I mean, on his shifts, you're not allowed to wear certain clothes. Just on his shifts, you're allowed to be preferentially homophobic. Now, this went to the community planner and the mayor's office last February, and it took me until September to get an audience with the mayor and finally speak to him about it. And I apologize to you, Mr. Nugent. You asked me for those questions, and life has been upside down. I'm appearing for maybe 8 citations tomorrow while trying to get ready for a move in 2 days. And as I went to try and do some laundry and clean up when I'm moving yesterday, I had all of my money stolen from my tent so that I don't have anywhere to put my stuff in storage. You know, it's a constant battle out there. But as far as people being scared of the people they're housed with, I'll remind you again of the story of my friend Mary, who I slept beside last year because her protection order had lapsed by 3 days, and they put her sexual offender and abductor on the floor 5 beds from her. When they found out, they didn't remove either of them from the building. They put them on either side of the room. It's an emergency shelter. 3 years ago. By now, there should be a list of rules on the wall. I spent 14 days of January last year just asking for a list of rules so we didn't have to go back in and ambiguously be thrown out in the middle of the night for 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month, only to not be able to even appeal it for 30 days. Where do you stay? The list of rules we got last year started with, do anything a staff member tells you or receive a 3-day out. That's a Gestapo stamp. That's not a rule. This may not be Nazi Germany. I'm not trying to make that comparison, but that for your first rule is gross. This fellow who tells me he's allowed to be homophobically preferential all night long on his shift.
Thank you. Is there anyone else? I'm going to ask you guys to be quiet, please, because we got other folks that want to talk. I've got someone online. Is there anyone else in chambers that wants to provide public comment? Okay, we're going to go to online. And Marty, we have, looks like Matt's is trying to.
Yes, Mr. Larson, you should be able to unmute and speak.
Matt Larson, Ward 3, thank you. I just wanted to remind everyone that Wednesday at the library from 3 to 5 p.m. they're taking public comments for the county regarding Marshall Mountain. Another thing we don't necessarily need, but we're probably going to spend a lot of money on. And that we don't necessarily have all of our finances in order to do so. So it would be interesting to see who can all make it there. I know it was not advantageously scheduled, let's say, because a lot of people will be at work, but it's from 3 to 5 p.m. at the public library tomorrow or on Wednesday, the 4th. So thanks.
Great. Thank you. Marty, do you see anyone else online? Because I don't see anyone. Oh, you're out here. Okay, I don't think we have anyone else for public comment on items not on the agenda, so we'll go forward with the next item, which, Marty, if you could announce the committee meetings, please.
Thanks. We're continuing to troubleshoot here just a little bit behind the scenes, but let's talk about this week's committee schedule and next week's. This coming Monday is the Indigenous Peoples Day here in the city, and so City Council will not meet next week, so we are setting up committee meetings for 2 weeks. However, next week is the Montana League of Cities and Towns Conference, and a sizable number of city officials, including council members, will be in Helena, Montana, attending that conference from Wednesday through Friday. It's being held at the Great Northern Hotel on beginning Wednesday evening with a reception. The meetings begin in earnest on Thursday at 8 o'clock and Friday at 8 o'clock. And again, that's at the Great Northern Hotel in Helena. So let me share my screen and I will talk to you a little bit about what's in store for committees this coming Wednesday, October 4th. So first of all, the Budget and Finance Committee meeting will be held from 9 o'clock until 10:15 a.m. They'll be taking up community-based organization contracts from 2024 and also considering an amendment to City Council Rule number 22. The Land Use and Planning Committee will meet this coming Wednesday from 10:25 until 11:55. They'll be taking up 2 items. The first is an ordinance amending Title 18 of Floodplain Hazard Management Regulations, and also a referral on the interim ordinance for city zoning amendments that are required to comply with actions and bills that were passed by the 2023 Montana legislature. The Public Safety and Health Committee will follow that afternoon, Wednesday, the 4th, from 12:40 until 12:50. They will be considering a contract that's specifically a collective bargaining agreement with the International Association of Machinists and Aerospace Workers Union that represents the city's Fleet Services Division, also known as Vehicle Maintenance. The Housing, Redevelopment, and Community Programs Committee will meet this Wednesday from 1 o'clock to 1:50. They will not be conducting a public hearing. It says public hearing here, but committees usually set public hearings, and City Council conducts a public hearing. And this is on a pathways to removing obstacles to housing grant application, or a pro housing grant application. And finally, the Housing, Redevelopment, and Community Program Committee will be taking up a contract with the Poverello Center for outreach and operations. I believe that is the contract for something that's commonly called the homeless outreach teams, or the HOT teams. And then, just so everybody knows, the City Council has a special meeting this week, Wednesday, October 4th. It's going to take place from 3 to 5 p.m. It's being held over at the Missoula Public Library, 455 East Main Street. We're going to be on the top floor of the new public library. And the topic of business is a public hearing on the Marshall Mountain open space acquisition. So joint meeting with the City Council and the Missoula County Board of Commissioners on that Marshall Mountain open space matter. And that's all I have for you tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda, item number 5. Items on the consent agenda were approved in City Council committees to be placed on the consent agenda to save time at council meetings by voting on them as a package. The city clerk will read the list aloud so citizens watching on MCAT will know what is on the consent agenda, and will invite community comment on these items before we vote. Marty, if you could go through the consent agenda, please.
I'd be happy to. Let me share my screen so folks can follow along. Tonight's consent agenda has 5 items, and the first is to pay the city's bills. Tonight, City Council is being requested to approve accounts payable for checks dated October 3rd in the amount of $968,654.19. Number 2 is to approve the contract with legal advertising rates with Lee Enterprises. Number 3 is to approve of a 7.5-foot wide underground private utility easement for the installation of a buried power service to run from the existing power pole within Kiwanis Park through the existing emergency egress easement to the subject property. Number 4 is to approve and authorize the mayor to sign the First Amendment to the Snow Farm right-of-way agreement. Number 5 is the first reading and preliminary adoption of an ordinance. Tonight, City Council is setting a public hearing on October 16th of 2023 and preliminarily adopting an ordinance generally amending Title 18 of Missoula Municipal Code of the City of Missoula. It's our flood hazard management regulations. And the purpose of this is to incorporate revisions to Appendix A depicting updated flood insurance studies and map revisions, and to incorporate revisions to a lot of sections: 1.2, 1.4, 1.5, 1.7, 2, 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, 6.1, 8.4, 9.10, 9.13, 9.15, 10.2, 10.3, and 10.4 in alignment with the updated Missoula, Montana Department of Natural Resources and Conservation DNRC model ordinance. And refer this item to the Land Use and Planning Committee for a preview on October 4th of 2023. If anybody from Public Radio Land is out there listening, I think I could overread the transistors for KUFM after accomplishing reading all those sections of our floodplain regulations. And finally, number 6 is to waive first reading and set a public hearing on October 16th of 2023 on an interim zoning ordinance. It's entitled City Interim Urgency Zoning Amendments Complying with the 2023 state legislation. So this is a package of laws that City Council needs to consider in order to comply with new laws that were adopted by the state. And this matter is also being referred to the Land Use and Planning Committee for preview prior to the public hearing. And that's what I've got for you tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Marty. All right. Did any council members want to separate the question or announce an intent to abstain? Mr. Carlino.
Yep, 5.3, you could separate that one.
All right, let's separate out item 5.3. All right, is there any public comment on the consent agenda? Let me check online really quickly. All right, not seeing any public comment on the consent agenda. So Marty, if you can do all of the items except 5.3, and then we'll do 5.3 afterwards. Roll call vote. We can't hear you, Marty.
Sorry, I said, hang on just a moment. I just promoted a council person who's going to need to vote on this item. Hang on. All righty, I think that should be effective now. Let's do the entire consent agenda here just a moment. Except for item 5.3. Okay. Sorry about that. Oh, I see what's happening. Somehow when I was clicking all the buttons out here, I made you all absent. And so it was like, you don't have anybody to vote, but I have you all back in the meeting now. All right. Not the most technologically smooth meeting this evening. All right, here we go. Anderson.
Yes.
Becerra.
Yes.
Carlino.
Yes.
Contos.
Yes.
Farmer.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Nugent.
Yes.
Savage.
Yes.
Sherrill.
Yes.
Vasecka.
Yes.
And West.
Yes.
Would any of you like to change your vote? That is unanimous on the consent agenda. Let's move to item 5.3 now. And we'll start this round with Becerra.
Yes.
Carlino.
He was abstaining.
Okay, Carlino abstains. Contos.
Yes.
Farmer.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Jordan.
Yes.
Nugent.
Yes.
Savage.
Yes.
Sherrill.
Yes.
Vasecka.
Yes.
West.
Yes.
And Anderson.
Yes.
All right, that is, would any of you like to change your vote? I should ask that first. That's 11 ayes and 1 abstention and a pass.
Great, thank you, Marty. We have, under item number 6, we have no comments from city staff, city agencies, community forum, neighborhood councils, boards, commissions, or authorities. Item number 7, we had no special presentations or proclamations. Under 8, final consideration, we have item 8.1, the Edward Byrne Justice Assistance Grant. Were there any further questions from council on this? We had extensive presentations and Q&A in committee. So we will go to Ms. Anderson for a motion, please.
Thank you so much. I move the recommended motion, which is to approve and authorize the mayor to sign the memorandum of understanding with Missoula County concerning the grant application and expenditures for the 2023 Justice Assistance Grant, known as JAG funds.
Great. Thank you. Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none in chambers and no raised hands, any council comments on this item? All right, seeing none, we will have a roll call vote, please.
Okay, on the memorandum of an understanding, Carlino,
Yes.
Contos,
Yes.
Farmer,
Yes. Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Jordan,
Yes.
Nugent,
Yes.
Savage,
Yes.
Sherrill,
Yes.
Vasecka,
Yes.
West,
Yes.
Anderson,
Yes.
and Becerra.
Yes.
Would any of you like to change your vote? That is 12 ayes and it passes.
Great, thank you. That passes. We have no other final considerations tonight. We do have one public hearing. State law and city council rules set guidelines for inviting community comment in a formal way on certain issues. Following a staff report on each item, the city council and the mayor invite community comment. We'll hold the public hearing tonight, and then we will vote at our next scheduled meeting, which this is scheduled for October 16th. The one item that we have tonight, that will be a final vote then. So we have item 9.1, an ordinance revising, well, gosh, I'm not going to read all of this. I'm just going to have staff introduce it. But this is about bear safety. So come on up, Shannon.
Thank you. This is going to be interesting because I can't see it up there, but I will be able to see it. Nope, there it is. Never mind. It's just lower. Never mind. Hello, my name is Shannon Terrio. I'm the director of the environmental health at Missoula Public Health, and I am here today to talk about adopting the revised version of the solid waste management rule that is part of the Missoula City County Health Code. It's also known as Regulation 3, and the proposed revisions to the Missoula Municipal Code as a partner to that, specifically the garbage and rubbish regulations. So the Missoula City County Health Board, after 2 public hearings and 2 comment periods, approved changes to Regulation 3, to the solid waste regulations. And they used both public comment and board comments to improve the final version that they approved. So next, it has to, after the health board approves it, it has to go to city council and county commissioners for adoption. The commissioners have held 2 public hearings in September, and they adopted the new version of Regulation 3 by reference of the City County Health Code on just last week, 9/28. So just a very quick overview of the changes made by the health board. This regulation had not been updated since 1996, so it was out of date. Most of the changes are editing. Some outdated language was removed, some language was clarified. We used the Montana Legislative Style Guide to be consistent when we used shall or must, may or may not. There were things that were out of date. For instance, residential containers were limited to 36 gallons. It didn't contemplate the idea that we would have automated garbage disposal. And so now we are allowed by the health code, or will be when you adopt it, to have those 90-gallon containers. We also added a definition of recycling. But really, the big change has to do with limiting bears' access to garbage. So bears that get used to seeking food, rewards, and garbage become emboldened. They damage properties by seeking food. They're more likely to be near roads and hit by cars. They create unsafe conditions for people, pets, and it is also, of course, deadly for the bears. So removing problem bears is not a solution. If garbage is still available, we're going to get more bears that come in and start accessing it. So it really is a very reactive approach. It's not a proactive approach. So the current bear buffer zone, which is there, is established in the Missoula Municipal Code, and as you can see, it is limited to the city limits. That's not large enough to keep the bears out of the city, and in fact, there's a lot of developed property in the county outside the city limits going up the drainages. Another problem with the existing rules is that it requires, the existing rules in municipal code do require bear-resistant containers unless you're going to put your garbage out the day of service. But most people, frankly, don't have bear-resistant garbage containers, and they put it out the night before. And part of that is because of how early the service is, but that's also because it's convenient. It's convenient to put it out the night before. So what we have now is very enforcement intensive, it's resource intensive, and it's, again, reactive. So every fall, every spring, our animal control officers are out there doing what we call bear patrols, but it's really garbage can patrols, to be honest, and to see if people are putting their garbage out the day of. Because it's so intensive and because we have to do the same thing over and over again, we really concentrate on the Rattlesnake and Grant Creek area, and we have a lot of bears there. So it's not working. A group got together, Bear Smart Working Group, to look at the problem and to see if we could find a better solution. So this working group consists of city, county, and state agency representatives, bear experts and advocates, and neighborhood leaders. We followed British Columbia's Bear Smart model, and so first what we did is an assessment to look at where the bear problems were coming from, what was the cause of them. Secondly, we created a bear conflict management plan, like how could we address the problems that we found in the assessment. That was completed in 2022. It was presented to the Health Board, the City Council, and the County Commissioners. And the big thing in that is that the majority of the human-bear conflicts revolve around garbage. 49% of the human-bear conflicts in the Missoula area revolve around garbage. So in October 2022, the Board of County Commissioners and the City Council adopted a joint resolution committing Missoula to be in Bear Smart, to be in a Bear Smart community, specifically through public education, promotion, ordinances, and enforcement, and wanted, us to use a public-private partnerships in doing that. And that is what the Bear Smart Working Group has continued to do. We continue to meet. That group is really focused on education and promotion, but this regulation change is part of that. It's the ordinance part of that. It's finding the solutions through ordinance and enforcement. So, what did we do? The revised rule expands and improves the bear buffer zone that was initially created in the municipal code. The outline here is the study area. I could probably take that away now. We just needed an area to say this is the area where we're going to do the hazard assessment, and this area made sense as a way to start. We know that there are bears outside of this area, but what we were really looking at was the human-bear conflicts that are happening in the urban core, or near the urban core, in the urban area, I should say. So the hatch marks are the current bear buffer zone, and the grayed area is the new bear buffer zone as approved by the Health Board. In addition, the regulations, one thing to note is that we do live in bear country, so we will have bears moving through. Bears will come through Missoula. Every once in a while, people should see a bear, but what we don't want is them to hang out, to get into garbage, break into homes, and garages and freezers. So that is what this is about. It's reducing bears' access to garbage, and hopefully then bears move through and they don't hang out in Missoula, especially around homes and garbage cans. So it's not just a matter of needing to have a bigger area. It's also, we got to have a rule that's effective. So this little video, very short, shows you a bear trying to get into a bear-resistant can. It happens to have been taken up in the rattlesnake. So the health board revisions require all garbage to be stored in bear-resistant containers or enclosures. And you can see this bear, after trying, can't get in, walks away. That's what we need, them to just walk away.
Just walk away.
So in addition, the health board approved of phasing in of the regulations. And that is it helps us get started right away, so we can do something right away. We don't have to wait 3 years to do something, but it also allows haulers time to get and distribute the cans, because they can't just order them all and get them all right away. So we needed to have a phased approach. I'm sorry this is not super contrasting, and we'll fix that in post, as they say, but we started with the most critical area, which is Grant Creek and the Rattlesnake and Butler Creek. And then, so those would go into effect next April, April 2024. And then it goes from the Rattlesnake area to the University of Montana and the Patty Canyon area in 2025. And the rest of the zone would have to come into compliance by 2026, April 2026. In addition, during the public process, we heard comments about bear problems in Potomac, and there were community concerns that were passed on by one of our commissioners. Talked with Fish, Wildlife and Parks bear specialist, who's going to talk in just a second, about his concerns in that community. And it really was a community that was, bears were becoming kind of a crisis in this area, and Jamie will talk about that more. But so the health board approved, based on that, the health board approved a bear mitigation area zone around Potomac, where bear resistant containers and enclosures will also be required. So Jamie is here, and he can give us a quick summary of the bear issues in Missoula and the bear issues in Potomac. Jamie?
Yep. Say your name, please.
Good evening. Again, James Jonkel with Montana Fish, Wildlife and Parks. It's been an unusual year.
Pull a microphone up if it helps you to speak into it. It's
There.
too hard to lean over.
So, last year was just horrendous. We had a food failure, and from spring till fall last year, we were busy all the time. We had over 2,000 calls in 2022, and we ended up relocating 40 black bears. We had to euthanize 13 bears, and then 15 bears were shot by homeowners, and then we had 38 road-killed bears. That's not counting the bears that Montana Department of Transportation picks up. Bears are very vulnerable to highways, railroads, etc. In the fall, especially when they're coming down to the river bottoms to eat natural foods, but also access garbage. So we've had high mortality with roadkill. This year we had an excellent food year, and the spring was very quiet, and the summer was very quiet. But about 2.5 weeks ago, all heck broke loose in the Missoula area. And just as an example, in the rattlesnake area right now, we have 3 different females, all with cubs. We have multiple single bears, lone bears. And sadly, a portion of those bears are getting into garbage. Last year, we had quite a few issues at some of the homeless camps. We had about 30 incidents where bears were getting into tents, accessing food. This year, we have one female with 2 young, plus we think just 2 individual bears that are really working the homeless camps along the river right now. And we're monitoring one female that's doing some kind of inappropriate things. And hopefully we can capture her and relocate her, but every day she escalates a bit more. We also are starting to have more grizzlies here in the Missoula area. Like right now, we have a radio collar grizzly just south of town in the Lolo River bottoms. We have a grizzly that's been working the North Hills all summer, gotten pictures of that bear. And then that we've had several bears in the Clinton area, also grizzly. It's vitally important that we can get this ordinance in my opinion. Now, the Potomac area has been insane all summer, so I'm so happy that the county passed that. We have in Potomac right now probably 20, 25 plus black bears just hitting garbage everywhere throughout the valley. And we have about 3 grizzlies, maybe 4, that are hitting garbage as well. And I don't know, here's a picture of a new bear that just showed up in Potomac last week, and sadly, he's escalating by the day. He hit this garbage, I think it was on Thursday, then he was back on Saturday, and then we have to investigate it, but we fear he got into a chicken coop as well. So with that, I'll sit down if you have any questions. Uh-oh, sorry.
Okay. So I did want to say that we've had quite a few public comments during the process, and they were overwhelmingly in favor of the changes. Those who were not in favor of the changes brought up cost or increased taxes. In Missoula, this will not increase taxes because we have a private garbage service that people directly, they're customers for garbage service. I can't think of the right word to say there. However, I will say that it does cost about $5 to $10 more per month to have a bear-resistant container. This just happens to be happening at a great time when our garbage service prices overall are going down. As an example, when I changed my dad to a bear-resistant container, his went from $135 a month or a quarter to $70 a quarter, even with a bear-resistant container. And so there's just kind of this really good moment in time where that's happening. Okay, so what would this look like? First of all, the Missoula City Council has already adopted the health code by reference. So really for that's an 8.02020. And really all that would have to happen here is to mark out March 21st, 1996, and adopt the Solid Waste Management Regulation 3 as approved by the Health Board on August 17th, 2023. And that would adopt the bear buffer zone in Missoula, around Missoula and in Potomac. Secondly, we request that the council deletes 8.28085 in the municipal code. That's garbage and rubbish, and that's special provisions for the accumulation and storage of garbage within the bear buffer zone and the associated definitions. So that would make sure that the Missoula Municipal Code, that portion doesn't conflict with other portions since the health code is adopted into the municipal code and also into county ordinance. So it doesn't need to be in both places for it to be in effect in the city. And then when we were talking with the city attorneys about these changes, one thing that they requested that we do is to include a change in penalties so that it would no longer be a criminal misdemeanor to violate section 8.28 garbage and rubbish, but rather a civil infraction. And then lastly, when council set this hearing, there was public comment on it that there were some concerns about the handbill portion of 8.28, and that's 8.28090, and I can show it to you here. So somebody could, this is not already part of the package, so it would have to be, somebody would have to move it to amend what we had, but I've talked with, communicated with the city attorney's office, and that really can go. And then the next section, 8.28-100, littering, covers it. I'm showing you just A and C here so that it can be seen on the screen, but it's already unlawful to litter. And then secondly, it's the duty of the person distributing or causing to be distributed commercial handbills, leaflets, or flyers to take reasonable measures to keep such materials from littering public or private property. I will say that I just recently saw a movie that was called A Place Sort of, and it's about created by found footage of the Missoula area. And at one point, it does show a parade where a plane is flying over just with handbills are flying out of the plane. So I think that's probably where this came from. They were also on the floats and they were throwing handbills just on the road. It wasn't going anywhere to people, but so probably the city council at the time said that's enough, and they had that requirement. So I do think that you could do that as well. And that's the end of my presentation.
Great, thank you. We're going to take public comment on this first before we go to any questions from counselors. So is there any public comment on this item? Mr. Servine, come on up and please state your name and spell your last name, please.
Good evening. My name is Chris Servine, Servheen. I'm a member of the Missoula Bear Smart Working Group. I'm also a professional bear biologist. And I would like to encourage you to be very positive about this and to embrace this whole idea. This is a citizen-driven concept to make Missoula a bear smart community. We live in bear habitat. The bears are here. Bears are dying in great numbers, as Jamie told you, and there are solutions that we can implement cooperatively together. And we want to involve the citizens of Missoula in this. We don't want to tell them what to do. We want them to be part of the solution. And I think we've created a good system to do this. We've got good working relationship with the city and the county, and we've been really enthusiastic about seeing the way we've been accepted by the county officials and by you and the city council. So we really thank you for your interest in this. And you know, if this is passed in Missoula, Missoula would be the biggest, probably the biggest bear smart community south of Canada, and certainly the biggest one in Montana. And we'd be a leader in the state in trying to make Missoula a bear smart place and live with the bears so that they don't die when they come into our community. So thank you for your help.
Thank you for all your work on this. Anyone else wants to provide public comment? Come on up.
Hi, my name is Erin Edge, EDGE. I'm also in Ward 4. I represent Defenders of Wildlife. I'm also a member of the Bear Smart Working Group. I also work with maintenance of the Missoula Bears Facebook page, as some of you might be familiar with. And I've been working on this issue in the Missoula area for over 20 years now. I strongly support these proposed changes, and I'm excited that the county took these changes up, and I'm also very excited to be here today and that you guys are all looking at this issue. Passing these regulations would be a huge step forward in minimizing conflicts between humans and bears. Missoula has the opportunity, as Chris said, to lead by example. There are a lot of other communities in Montana and elsewhere that are looking for information on what people are doing to try and prevent conflicts at the community level. And so Missoula has that opportunity to lead by example. I recognize that the work doesn't end here, though. And so one thing I want to offer, and I think coming from the Bear Smart Working Group, we are working on education outreach. We are here to support the community in that and to provide both resources and information. And so one of the things we've done is set up a Bear Smart Missoula website on the Missoula Bears website. So if you go to www.missoulabears.com, .org, sorry, you will get to the Bear Smart Missoula site under the communities page. And we will continue to post information. For example, we created an FAQ on this new regulation so that people could look and find answers to questions quickly. We also have a number of bumper stickers and other kinds of water bottle stickers and other kinds of outreach information, and are coordinating with potential future outreach efforts. So we're not here to tell people what to do. What we want to do is work with the community, work with city and county officials to move forward in a positive manner. So thank you very much for considering this.
Great, thank you for your work also. Anyone else in chambers that wants to provide public comment? Come on up.
Hi, I'm Nancy Heil, H-E-I-L. I'm a Rattlesnake resident, and I'm on the board of the Rattlesnake Creek Watershed Group, and I've also been involved with the Bear Smart Group. And I'm speaking on behalf of the Rattlesnake Creek Watershed Group in full support of this measure. It would increase the bear buffer zone to cover all of the rattlesnake, not just the portion in the city, which is great since bears move throughout that corridor, and we really appreciate the city and the county working together on this. Requiring bear-resistant trash containers is aimed at one of the biggest contributors to conflicts, which is unsecured garbage. Bears learn really quickly where to get an easy meal, and we see this regularly in the rattlesnake. So we feel like this is a concrete, well thought out, and importantly, enforceable measure, and it's a great first step in moving us toward being a Bear Smart community. It's a continued step. So we urge you to support and implement this measure, and really thank you for your time and attention to this.
Thank you. Mr. Lindler, come on up.
Good evening. I'm Bert Lindler, Lindler, from Grant Creek. And for the past couple of years, I've had the privilege of meeting with folks on the Bear Smart Missoula working group to discuss the problems we've been experiencing and how we can improve them. But more to the point, for the past 15 years or so, I've been trying to encourage the residents of Grant Creek to do the right thing by their neighborhoods and by bears. And, you know, I've had some success, but by and large, I've failed, as has animal control, which they expressed their inability to make it work when the easiest thing to do is the wrong thing to do. You're really up against it using public education to get people to do the right thing. So in this case, the right thing will be done by default. And I think there's an excellent chance that this will greatly reduce the number of bears roaming our streets, presenting public safety issues and health issues to their own well-being. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Lindler. Come on up.
My name is Alyssa Chott, C-H-O-T-T, and I am commenting on behalf of the Great Bear Foundation, and I am also a member of the Bear Smart Working Group. And I just want to say, first of all, thank you for all of your consideration leading up to this point. And we do appreciate the engagement with the county and the health board as well. But we support adopting the expanded bear buffer zone and garbage storage regulations to reduce human-bear conflicts. Here in Missoula, bears accessing garbage is a human safety issue, and adopting these regulations will help keep property and people safe. Bears will always be in and around Missoula. Missoula's built like a funnel. We have these lovely riparian areas that lead straight down to the valley bottoms. What we don't want is bears following that and then finding these food sources and staying in town. And so reducing their access to garbage will really help with those conflicts. And so again, we just really support you adopting these measures and helping Missoula to become a Bear Smart community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else in chambers that wants to comment on this item tonight? Come on up.
Mr. Spitzmacher, for your amusement of entertainment, I had to take a sidetrack from my trail, the street. There was a wonderful pile of bear scat at Big Sky Bicycle. It wasn't a little pile. It was a humongous pile. I guess they wanted to visit the Chamber of Commerce, but they weren't open for business.
Thank you. Anyone else in chambers? All right, I'm just going to double check to make sure. I don't think we have anyone virtually. No, we do not. Okay, we had some questions from counselors. Ms. Jordan?
Thank you. This is a question for you, Jamie. I am just curious how the city can help mitigate issues between bears and our homeless campers. What can we do? What should we be doing? Because they are not going to buy bear-resistant bins. We currently don't have a safe place for them to camp that we're willing to tell them where they can go, where we can protect them. And I'm wondering what we can do to make sure that bears aren't being attracted into their encampments and increasing that interaction.
Well, you bet. James Jonkel again, Fish, Wildlife and Parks. So I've been working with the homeless outreach team, and we're trying to put together a little pamphlet similar to the ones that we put out for hunters and hikers that specifically just looks at camping in the urban setting with, how to hang your food, what to do if a bear comes in, how to maybe bear-proof your camp, have a evening or a night warning system of some sort. We've also worked with the county and city parks folks and put together a sign that just specifically addresses, the camps. We've morphed it just a little bit where it just sort of says, hey, bears are around here, so be careful, keep a clean camp. Also, been working a little bit with the HOT crew, which is the homeless outreach team, on maybe figuring out a different way to distribute food. Right now, we've had quite a few incidents where bears have found the shopping bags full of sandwiches and stuff and had quite a feed. And then there are certain areas where there's food left too. So we're going to just kind of work together with the homeless outreach team. And then just communication, visiting with folks. So a lot of times they are unaware, that a bear is even in the area. So just kind of giving them as much information as possible and encouraging them to, use garbage receptacles and, not leave bags of garbage around camp, that kind of stuff.
Great, thank you. One more question?
Yeah.
I guess my next question too is about citations. For people who are having regular interactions with bears on their property because they're not putting their trash out or bringing their bird feeders in, are people being given citations and are they being fined? Because I think that we're relying too much on goodwill and perhaps need to throw out some citations. To
thank
get
you
people
for that
confined.
question. I really appreciate that question. So of course, the first thing an animal control officer does is they leave information the first time every season. But then they do issue citations. The problem is they often don't result in a fine. So, yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Sherrill.
Don't go anywhere. I was trying to stop you, but trying to. So I'm on the health board, and we've talked about this on the health board, obviously. And I first just want to say that I know we're not voting on this tonight, so I'm not going to go into talking about it, but I really appreciate everyone's work on this. I appreciate everyone coming out. I appreciate the it's been a lot of hours of work and a good coalition of people, and that's great. One question I didn't ask at the health board though, and now I'm curious about, is the study area. If you look at the study area map that you'd put up, and then the area that we decided to implement the policy, there's a little area that we decided not to do anything in. And could you speak to kind of what some of the metrics and parameters around those decisions were?
Yes, so the concept is that it's a bear buffer zone. It's buffering the urban core. And so the idea is that it has to be big enough to keep the bears from seeking garbage within the urban core. But if they're not trained as they come down to get into garbage, the concept is that they won't get into garbage, or you won't have bears that are hanging around. There was a study that was done in Durango that looked at the efficacy of bear-resistant containers in different areas, and it did find that the bear-resistant containers helped keep the area that was closer to town with fewer bear interactions. If that doesn't work, obviously we would need to do something else, but this felt like the right way to start. Yeah.
And I was more focused, I appreciate that answer, but I was more thinking about there's an area that we decided to not implement it, that we looked at in the study area. Is that correct, or am I reading the map wrong?
I think you're probably reading the map wrong.
Okay.
That area is actually all, it's undeveloped. It's a wilderness. It's the Rattlesnake Wilderness area.
That's okay.
Yeah,
That's
so we just left that out. We could have put it in, but we just left that out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we did incorporate all of the developed properties up Grant Creek, up Rattlesnake.
Okay, great. That was
Private
confusing to me
properties,
when I
should
looked
say.
at it today. Thanks.
Ms. Anderson.
Thanks so much. I actually wanted to go back to the line of questioning that was started by my fellow councilwoman, Ms. Jordan, in regards to the penalties. I understand the consultation with the city attorney about moving this from a misdemeanor to a municipal infraction, but I do, can you just walk us through the process in terms of the escalation of fines if you were a habitual offender? I think that Mr. Lindler said it well when it's, right now it's easy to do the wrong thing. And unfortunately, I think sometimes the only way to get people to do the right thing, is kind of making it the right thing, the path of least resistance.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously I'm assuming you all probably know some people who are just screw it, I don't care. I'm doing my thing. I have free right to do so. And they are causing continued interactions with bears. So in reading this, it didn't really kind of lay out the process for that.
Yeah. Well, first of all, let me step back just a minute and say it will be different because the health board approved regulation not only requires people to have bear resistant containers, but it does not allow the haulers to lease somebody a non-bear resistant container within the bear buffer zone. So they just will have bear resistant containers if they want garbage pickup. And so they either have to provide their own, which you can as long as they will match the equipment. So you can buy your own. There's a benefit to leasing them in that they get damaged. They get kind of, when the garbage collector is picking them up, they can be damaged. They can be damaged by bears and other things, and they would be replaced if you are leasing them from the hauler. But one way or the other, the haulers know that they have to pick up bear resistant containers. So that is part of the rule. And also what Mr. Lindler was talking about, it's it's easy to do the right thing because you have to do the right thing. The garbage companies will, and we talked to the garbage companies about this, the two haulers that are in town. So that is giant, that's helpful. People still have to use the bear resistant containers appropriately. They have to use them correctly. You can't overfill them. They have to be locked, so that the bears can't get in them. So we know that there's still going to be enforcement that's going to be involved in this. Part of the concept of that we're hopeful of, that I think Ryan Sudbury is on, and he might want to talk to the concept in general about moving away from crimes, misdemeanors, to civil infractions. But we're also hopeful that a judge would be more willing to find somebody as part of a civil infraction, a municipal infraction, as opposed to saying you committed a crime, you committed a misdemeanor. And so that is something that we're hopeful for. But, you know, that really, it just is in the court. If, however, we have somebody who is just, you know, it's identified as creating the problem in the neighborhood, there's also the ability to have a complaint in district court and to issue to file a complaint in district court where it's more of a trial, where there's more, you know, the experts will be there to say, here's all the things that we've tried, and we think that we could potentially have a better outcome there. It's obviously a lot of use of resources, so that can't be where we start. So.
Great. I may have a follow-up.
Go ahead.
I think that's the super important point that I think was lost on all of us is that if passed in the bear buffer zone, folks will be required to utilize bear safe, which I think is huge. So then the question is in regards to folks who already currently live there and have service, what's the transition plan for?
Right, and that's the phasing, so that the haulers will have time to get them and get them out. But by that date, the haulers have to change all of their customers over in each phase to a bear-resistant container, or the person has to have bought their own bear-resistant container, not leasing any container. So we've talked to the haulers about that. So it really will be on the shoulders of the haulers after it gets approved.
Great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that clarity.
And I see City Attorney Ryan Sudbury is on. Did you want to add to that topic of going from criminal to civil infractions, Mr. Sudbury?
Yeah, if you don't mind. I appreciate what Mr. was saying. I agree with that concept, is that we're both trying to make things that aren't really criminal acts, not punishable by criminal, citations. So things like zoning infractions or, illegal fences or something like that. Things that we're trying to get compliance on to try and move them away from, misdemeanors to these municipal infractions. And I agree with Ms. Therio, and she and I had talked about this, that if it's not a criminal sanction, that we may have a better chance of getting fines and escalating fines from the municipal court or even from district court. And we can still seek escalating fines for repeat activities or repeat infractions under the municipal infraction approach. So it doesn't change the outcome that much by going to municipal infractions. It does change, the burden of proof is lower because it's a civil proceeding, not a criminal proceeding. And so it reduces the load on the prosecution office as well as the officers in the field, and it doesn't have quite the weight and the penalty associated with the criminal sanction. But be that as it may, talking about the repeat offenders, I do think that's something that could rise to the level of a public nuisance. If somebody's a repeat offender of the bear buffer zone regulations, it's something we could take them. We could turn into a criminal sanction through the public nuisance proceeding, and I think something like repeat infractions would be supported by that.
Great, thank you. Okay, any other questions from council? Mr. Carlino and then Ms. Vasecka.
I was wondering, some bear resistant bins lock automatically when you close them. Some you have to put a latch on yourself. I'm wondering if we have a definition of bear resistant bins, or should we specify what type of bear resistant bins are allowed? Because the ones that lock automatically would probably make compliance easier. Or do we have an idea of which ones the garbage companies already use?
Yes, so thank you for that question. Both haulers use cans that lock automatically, so that's great. I don't think that they could on Republic's route use one that that the garbage collector would have to get out and open. So that wouldn't work. And so what the regulation says is that it has to be IGBC approved. It's the Interagency Grizzly Bear Committee approved and they evaluate whether or not it keeps bears out and whether it works. And so that's the first thing. And then the second thing is it has to work with the hauler's equipment. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah, thank you for that clarification. It's good to see that it's in there. And then my other question was, what steps towards working towards being a Bear Smart community can we expect to see next after this ordinance comes in front of us? Are we expecting the Bear Smart working group to bring something else forward? And what do you all expect to be the next step?
That is also a good question. I know that the Bear Smart Working Group has really been talking a lot about education and promotion. And I might want to throw that question to somebody. Yeah. Okay. Could I do that? Okay, thank you. I've really been focused on the regulation, as you might imagine. Yeah.
Thank you. Erin Edge, EDGE. Yes, we are talking about education and outreach campaigns, working with the city and the county on developing messaging around if there are new regulations, making sure that everybody kind of knows what those regulations are, knows how to comply, knows how to use a bear-resistant garbage can, knows how to use it properly. There's a number of things that I think that we'll have to inform the public on, but also just working with the public to find out, what are their concerns, what are their issues, what are they needing in their neighborhood, what resources are we still lacking. Again, this is something to address garbage, so we also have bird feeders, fruit trees. So those are all going to be continuing outreach and resource needs that we will continue to work on.
Ms. Vasecka?
Thanks. I'm kind of circling back to Stacie's question regarding the violations. I wonder if we need to clean up the language in the proposed ordinance because it says, every person convicted of a violation of any provision of this chapter shall be punished by a fine not to exceed $500 for each offense. And that is governed by Montana Code annotated and underneath Title 7, Chapter 1, Part 4150. Municipal infraction is a civil offense punishable by a civil penalty of not more than $300 for each violation. And if the infraction is a repeat offense, a civil penalty not to exceed $500 for each repeat violation. So do we need to add that not more than 300 for each violation and then not to exceed 500 for repeat offenses?
So Ryan Sudbury might want to talk about this, but one of the things that the new language does is it references the Montana Code annotated and how civil infractions are to be handled. And it does specifically talk about $300 and $500 once you get repeat violations. And so some of that is just covered by reference.
Oh, okay.
But
I'm
Ryan,
not a lawyer, so I
Ryan
wasn't
would
sure.
probably be a better to make
Yeah, and that's how we've done it. And elsewhere in Title 12, we changed most of the violations of Title 12 to the same approach by referencing the MCA. So we'd be governed by that. We wouldn't be able to seek a $500 fine for a first offense just because that's not allowed as part of a municipal infraction.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that we were getting the language proper there. It sounds like you already are on it, so I'm all finished. Thank you.
Thanks. And Ms. Jordan?
I just had a comment when it's appropriate.
So we're just having the public hearing tonight. No motion is on the floor, but then we'll have final consideration on October 16th and do comments then.
Right. Thanks.
Sit
Just want
tight.
people to carry bear spray and know how to use it.
All right. Any other questions from council? And I'm not seeing anyone online. All right. So this item, we will close the public hearing. We will have final consideration of this item on October 16th, 2023. We'll take public comment then, as well as council questions and comments and a vote. So thank you, all of the Bear Smart people. And considering that our mascot for the University of Montana is the Grizz, I think we should be a leader on all of this. Very good. Thanks so much. All right, we have one item under committee reports. Items listed here were not approved unanimously in city council committees. The chairperson of the standing city council will make a motion, and we invite community comment on each item. So, under item 10.6, the Committee Public Safety, Health, and Operations, Ms. Anderson, if you would make the motion regarding the amending professional services agreement with Black Knight Security, please.
Yes, ma'am. Happy to do so. I make the recommended motion that we approve and authorize the mayor to sign the amendment number 2 to the Black Knight Security for the security services for the city of Missoula. And happy to speak to it when appropriate. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Is there any any public comment on this item? Mr. Hunt, come on up.
Kevin Hunt, Ward 1. I understand you don't really have much choice but to use private contractors. But just as a matter of morality, I would like to speak against it on grounds that I think that for-profit law enforcement is absolutely immoral and leads to all kinds of problems. That's not to disparage any of the people that are serving the city of Missoula as individuals. But in general, I think it's a terrible idea. I also understand you don't have any choice, so thank you.
Thank you for comments. Anyone else in chambers that wants to make public comment? And I'm not seeing anyone online. Any other council questions? Mr. Carlino.
I'm not sure if anybody from Black Knight is online.
I'm sure that Mr. Bickle can answer anything, but go
Okay,
ahead.
yeah, well, maybe for staff. I'm curious, we invested quite a bit of money into our police body cameras, which seemed like a step in the right direction for people that are walking around with guns and patrolling our community. However, we have Black Knight Security also walking around our community with weapons and patrolling around with guns, yet they don't have the same body cameras that our police have. So I'm wondering why not have body cameras for the security, and why? I guess that's my main question. Why are we hiring a private company to walk around with guns patrolling our streets and not have body cameras on them?
Mr. Bickle, is that something you can field?
Well, I can try to answer some of it, though I'm certainly not an expert in law enforcement or security. But that's the one thing I want to highlight is that this Black Knight is not a law enforcement agency. It is private security. What they are doing is patrolling these neighborhoods and parks to ensure safety for our residents and people using those facilities. And but if there is trouble, that's when police is summoned if there's an issue related to that. So I just want to really highlight that this is not law enforcement. This is security, and that's a big difference.
All right. Any other questions from council, Mr. Carlino?
Yeah, I just had one follow-up. I was wondering if Black Knight Security is patrolling the streets because of our contract and ends up using their weapon on somebody unlawfully or unconstitutionally, who would be responsible for a misuse of weapons from Black Knight Security while they're patrolling the streets?
I don't know if Mr. Bickle or Mr. Sudbury is able to address that. Sure, the contract probably addresses this, but I'm not sure if any staff are able to weigh in on that. Mr. Sudbury?
Yeah, I mean, it would certainly be our position that it's the company that is responsible for the training and oversight of its employees and then make sure that they're properly trained to discharge their firearms. But as Jim Nugent always said, it's plaintiffs' lawyers can be creative, and certainly there could be some way that somebody could try and bring the city into a suit like that. And certainly we tried to be protective of that through our contract with Black Knight and, trying to make sure that we're hiring a reputable vendor that has the appropriate training and is hopefully making sure that its employees are appropriately trained and providing those kinds of certificates to the city to prove that kind of thing. So certainly it would be our position that it would be up to Black Knight to be responsible for any incident involving its employees, whether it's a discharge of a firearm or anything else.
Thank you, Mr. Sudbury. Okay, any other questions? Any council comments? Ms. Anderson, I believe you were going to comment.
Yeah, thanks so much. And just wanted to point out, I know we've heard from former police chief who is now on staff for council as our security. I know he has an official title. It's blanking me at this exact moment. Mike Brady, risk assessment. Thank you so much. And I know that he is working to make sure that tracking all of the licenses and requirements through the contract with Black Knight just as an extra layer of double checking. I have a hard time a lot of times with the proliferations of guns in our society. We as Americans have more guns than the rest of the world. I realize our Constitution allows for that. And that the Montana legislature has made it easier to carry guns in public places, which, can make at times many of us who do this work feel unsafe. So I appreciate the fact that, as a way to combat that, we have had to contract with a private security firm. I wish the world was different on so many different levels for so many different things. But I appreciate that I feel in the situation we are in, that especially with the oversight that we're trying to provide as an extra layer of reassurance to the community, that this is I will be supporting this motion to amend the contract and continue to utilize our services. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Any other comments from council? Mr. Carlino.
Yeah, I am still strongly against having a private for-profit company patrolling our streets with weapons. It should really be a public entity that patrols our streets, or that we give authority to walk around with weapons. For reasons of accountability, it should be public. For reasons that people should be making a living wage if we're going to contract with them. For the safety of our citizens, I think we need to make sure that we have body cameras on people that are walking around our streets with weapons. I think it's important that we make sure that everybody that is walking around that's hired by the city with guns has proper licensing and has proper accountability to the community. And we're just not going to get that's the level of accountability and transparency that we deserve by using a for-profit private company to do this. So we really need to have better staffing and a public entity to help keep our community safe around here. And I don't think we should just hire anybody to walk around with weapons and give them authority to help regulate the streets.
Any other comments from council? Seeing none and no raised hands, we'll have a roll call vote on this item.
Okay, on the contract, I think we start this round with Carlino.
No.
Contos.
Yes.
Byrne.
Yes.
Jones.
Yes.
Byrne.
Yes.
Nugent.
Yes.
Savage.
Yes.
Sherrill.
Yes.
Vasecka.
Yes.
West.
Yes.
Anderson.
Yes.
And Becerra.
Yes.
Would any of you like to change your vote? That is 11 ayes and 1 no. And it passes.
Thank you. We have no new business. I will pass on communications from the mayor. And for general comments of city council, let's start with Ms. Farmer, please.
I'll pass.
Ms. Savage,
I'll pass.
Ms. Becerra,
I'll pass. Thank you.
Mr. Contos,
I'll pass. Thank you.
Ms. Vasecka,
I'll pass.
Ms. Anderson.
I'll just quickly say thanks to everyone who came out despite the rain for the homecoming parade. Go Grizz. The wind helped with the Yeah, I mean, it warmed your soul, so you're warming from the inside out. But yes, winter in Montana or fall in Montana, you just never know. So, thanks to the community for the continued good community spirit and supporting the university.
All right, Ms. Sherrill.
I'll pass. Thank you.
Ms. Jordan.
Yeah, I'm going to take the moment to talk about bear spray that I wanted to take earlier. And I'm not sure how many people listen at this point in the meeting, but, I do a lot of hiking and mountain biking and carry bear spray with me every time I go. And I hike and bike with people who don't think you need to have bear spray because they don't run into bears very often. And when they do, there's never a horrible interaction. And I would like to say that bear spray is like seatbelts. We put our seatbelts on because we never know what's going to happen. And we need to carry bear spray because we never know what's going to happen. And we need to know how to use it. Because basically when there is a bear-human interaction, it is the bear that gets into trouble. And so I would encourage everyone to carry bear spray, make sure it is not expired, and know how to use it properly.
Thank you, Mr. Carlino. Ms. West.
I got nothing.
Mr. Nugent.
Thank you. I would echo Ms. Anderson's comments. First of all, I think I've been to about 30 of those parades, and it was not the most miserable. There have been colder.
That's true.
So, I mean, it was fine. It was very wet. I want to take a moment of personal privilege and just wish my wife a happy anniversary. I'm sure that when we got married, she wasn't thinking about spending anniversaries watching MCAT while I was at City Council. And I'm certain that she didn't think I would make her life as public as it's been the last year and a half. So happy anniversary, and thanks for putting up with me.
Great, thank you. We have no miscellaneous communications reports or announcements. The administratively approved agreement is attached. We have no other business, so thank you for your service, and we will stand adjourned.